from last week, we have been going through some of the verses that Shantideva explained, the benefit of having correct realizations, understanding of the emptiness. And once we have a, correct realization, understanding of the emptiness, then we will not have such a discriminating mind like we have at the moment, where the sense of, independent us and they, independent me and others, independent friends and enemies, independent good and bad, because a lot of our all those negative emotions arises on the basis of that, because of sense of belief that there is an independent me and others. Then we feel there's the distance, the gap, and then we respond and react differently to self and others because of that. And same with the sense of independent us and others. And because there is such independent, that kind of due to not understanding the emptiness, because we see there is sense of independent, concrete, separate us and them, then again we have different response to emotionally and the way we respond to us and the way we respond to others. And then that's same, we have different response to our friends, families, and we have different response to our enemy. And then because of that, again, that kind of independent, separate so-called friends and enemies. And because of that, then we respond differently. To some, we respond with attachment. To some, we respond with anger, hatred. And with that kind of discriminating response, then it creates a lot of suffering. It brings a lot of pain and suffering to ourselves and to others. And through that, we suffer and we continue to create cause and conditions to be tied up, bound in the samsara, and then continue to suffer again in the future, as well as continue to live that kind of imprint, that way of responding, imprint, and then we continue to respond that way again and again in that way, and therefore never being able to get out of that kind of response, that kind of reacting that way, When you have an understanding of emptiness, then we come to have more equanimity towards everything. Because we see in emptiness, they all are equal, same. In emptiness, in emptiness, there is no self and others. In emptiness, there is no we and others. In emptiness, there is no friends and enemies. In emptiness, there is no good and bad. And so when you have that understanding, then we respond more with the equanimity, with more equalness. And when we respond with more kind of equanimity to every sentient beings, then we create less pain and suffering to others and oneself. Also, when we are that, also we respond with more equanimity to whatever experiences, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. And when we are able to respond with more equanimity to whether it's good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, pain or suffering, we suffer less. You know, at the moment, we don't have that kind of equanimity. We are very attached to the pleasant experience. We are very much have a strong aversion to the unpleasant experience, and therefore we suffer a lot. Because when we experience any kind of unpleasant, because we have so much aversions, because we have so much feeling of unwanted and all of that, and then when it arises, then it becomes miserable, unhappy. But when you have same kind of equanimity toward whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, you know, we don't suffer like the way we suffer at the moment. You know, we are okay if it's a pleasant experience. We are okay even if it's an unpleasant experience. We are okay if we are healthy. If we are also able to accept easily with being okay even when we are not so healthy. We are okay if we have wealth and rich. We are also okay if we don't have so much wealth and poor, and you know, if we will be okay if we gain. Also, we will be okay if we lose. So all the changes, the nature of the impermanent changes, whether in our experience, whether our health, whether it's all the people's behavior, actions, response, the whole situation, the elements, whatever changes, because they are always going to be changed, and this different changes doesn't affect us emotionally so much. You know, at the moment, it really affects us. When the weather changes, it affects us physically, mentally. You know, when our people's behavior or response or reactions changes, it affects us. You know, when there's change in our health, it affects us. When there is a change in our work situation, it helps. You know, and so therefore so fluctuating, you know, all the time. Our mind, our experience, and our life is fluctuating all the time. Because there is a changes, impermanent. And when those changes happen, it affects us. And the reason we have that is because within those different experiences, situations, phenomena, you know, because to some we have a strong attachment, to some we have strong aversions. That's why, because we don't have same way of equanimity to all of that. If we have sense of more equanimity, then it will not affect the way it affects us at the moment. So then you can keep your mind more calm, peaceful all the time, without being so fluctuating. And when we have realization of emptiness, then we can have that kind of equanimity, you know. When you have realization of emptiness, then you can come to that sense of feeling of equanimity. And with that kind of equanimity, then definitely it helps us, our mind to keep more calm, peaceful, as well as because of that equanimity, feeling of equanimity equal, it allows us to cultivate love and compassion to each and every sentient being. At the moment, it doesn't allow. We can have compassion and love for some, but not to all, because of that discriminating mind, because there is no equanimity. It's easy to feel, for us at the moment, it is easy to feel concern. It is easy to feel sense of, you know, caring, love and compassion to our dear one, near ones, whether it's our children, whether it's our friends, all of that. And sometimes maybe even stranger when you see some of them in a very gross pain and sufferings. but then it's very difficult to feel same way. It is very difficult to feel same level of concern, same level of love, compassion, sense of care to those we dislike, to whom we have conflict, with whom we know, to whom we have differences, or for those which we don't see the pain, suffering so obviously. And so all of that, we are unable to feel the love and compassion and expand to all of them because of that discriminating mind. So when you have no discriminating mind, when you have when you have feeling equanimity, then you have less discriminating mind. And with that, from that state of equanimity, then it gives our mind more space, openness to feel love and compassion to each and every sentient being. And so that is why, again, the correct realization, emptiness, the effect of that immediately, and then definitely, it started to, each time we meditate on emptiness, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, it's like washing your clothes, taking away the stain of your dirts, the more time, then you, at the first washing, for first 2 minutes, you are able to kind of clean some of the gross stain, but not the subtle. And with more washing, then you are able to slowly, even the more subtle stains, and then completely clean all the stains. Same way in our delusions, slowly we are cleansing, overcoming and purifying those delusions, little by little, from gross level to subtle to more subtle level, and eventually to be able to completely cleanse all the stain of the delusions, completely. So, and as we purify and cleanse and overcome those delusions, the obscurations, the more we do, the more we become more enlightened, becoming more and more enlightened. We become more and more, knowing, and thereby leading more and more closer to the fully enlightenment. So I think so maybe then we kind of go to the verses that we have left last week. Is Wisdom chapter, page number 155. And I think we finished the verse number 153. Yeah. So, and then we're at 154. And so here it says, "O you who are investigating reality, so those who are interested, those who are inspirations to study, learn, and to contemplate, and to have the wisdom realizing emptiness. So those who have inspiration or who have that, please recognize, as I have done, that all is just like space." So then he's saying, we recognize, we understand all the phenomena all the phenomena lack, or all of them are free from, truly existent, inherent existence, independent existence. They all lack, existing so concrete or so solid as it appeared to us. Instead, we should understand they all are like a space, which is free from all the concreteness, the space, which is free from all the concreteness, which is free from all the solidness, When we talk about space is merely empty of abstractions. Space is a phenomena that is merely empty of abstractions, some abstractions, and something that can be touched physically. In the same way, all phenomena are merely empty of truly existence, merely empty of truly existence, merely empty of inherent existence. And so therefore, it's like a space. And just as space is, vast, same emptiness is very vast. When we have understanding of emptiness, our mind becomes very vast, spacious, just like the space. And so therefore, the space is kind of giving examples in order to have a example of understanding of emptiness. Just as space is merely empty of abstractions, and on the basis of merely being empty of abstraction, on the basis of that, then is merely imputed as a space. Same way, all the phenomena are empty of truly existing, inherent existence. On the basis of that, then is merely imputed, whatever phenomena. So therefore, it's just like a space. So we have to understand that. And then next verses is there's two ways of understanding. One is talking about the object of compassions, Bodhisattva, object of compassions. So the object of compassion is the sentient beings, And so here is saying, sentient beings, those who wish to be happy, all the sentient beings, even though they all want to be happy, nobody wants suffering. Nobody desires suffering. Everyone wishes to be happy all the time. Each and every sentient beings equally. Even though they wish to be happy, but due to their selfish attitude, due to their own selfish attitude and self-grasping ignorance, due to those two, internal interference, obstacle, enemy, due to the selfish attitude and self-grasping ignorance, to which the sentient beings, we have hold those two as the very dear and in our heart all the time, That has been center of our mind, our center of ourself, the self-grasping, ignorant, and selfish attitude. So far, we have taken them as like a true refuge and follow them, giving all our body, speech, and mind to them. all the time we have follow our body, speech, and mind. We always follow our selfish attitude, our ignorance. That is what we have been doing. You know, when our selfish attitude want, oh, that one, we follow that. We just follow that. When selfish attitude dislike someone, then we just follow it and we dislike the others. When and so we have been following this selfish attitude and self-grasping ignorance, holding them as like most precious, like the very heart of ourselves, and we have been following them, being almost like the most loyal servant. You know, we have been the most loyal servant to our selfish attitude and the self-grasping ignorance. All sentient beings. And because of that, you know, even you wish to be happy, but you are not happy, you know, are greatly disturbed by the cause for conflict, you know. Because of that selfish attitude and that self-grasping ignorance, then, you know, anger arises. Towards anger, resentment, hatred, ill will feeling arises towards those we dislike, towards those with whom we disagree, towards those enemies. And through that, then, you know, we get in conflict with them. You know, we get conflict with so-called enemy, you know. And we get conflict in enemy because of our, you know, anger and dislike. And due to that, then our mind is very disturbed. When you have conflict, our mind is disturbed. When you have conflict with anyone, don't our mind get disturbed? Yeah, it's very clear. You know, your mind is very peaceful, happy, and then slowly you start to have some argument, some conflict, and then your mind is disturbed. And there is no peace, you are unhappy, you know, painful. And so why do we get in conflict? You know, because of our selfish attitude, because of our ignorance. You know, a lot of time we see, you know, it's a clashes of two selfish attitudes. When there's clashes of two individuals, it's a clashes of two egoistic mind. It's clash of two ego. Where each of the ego feel we are more important, or we feel we are correct, other is wrong. The others feel, we feel we are correct, and the others feel they are correct. We feel they are wrong, and they feel we are wrong. And then, you know, that is conflict. And why do I feel I'm always right and others wrong? Why do they feel they are right and others wrong? It's my ego. It's my ego. You know? And so that is where, you know, and we still have that kind of egoistic mind, selfish attitude and ignorance because, again, due to lack of bodhisattva, due to lack of wisdom, realizing emptiness, you know, and that. So therefore, we get in the cause that lead to conflict. and then that conflict disturb ourselves and others, and overjoyed by the cause for pleasure, or due to that, egoistic mind or selfish attitude and the ignorance, then we get attached to our families, our friends, Due to that attachment, then we engage into a cause that we believe will bring happiness to our families, our friends, and ourselves. So then we engage in that, out of attachments. Then in order to bring happiness, joy to the object of your attachments, then we engage in the different things, different cause, different activities, So and then when you are unable to do that, we get frustrated, impatient, and upset and angry, isn't it? Out of attachment, either I'm trying to make myself happy, bring happiness to myself, or out of attachment, I'm trying to bring happiness to my families, my friends, and we try, and when we are unable to do it, we are unable to bring more joy, more happiness, or the cause of joy, happiness, which we believe the cause of happiness, joy. Let's say maybe we believe money is the cause of happiness for ourselves, our families, our friends, and you try to accumulate money so that you can give to them, support them so they will be happy. And when you are unable to do that, then we feel frustrated, impatient, angry, And that could be many things, or sometimes we want to have good health ourselves out of attachment. Out of attachment, we want to see good health of our friends, families, and we try, and when you are unable to do, when you are unsuccessful, when you are unable to avoid, when you are unable to success in making them more healthy, and that, then again, we get frustrated, impatient, upset, angry. Through that, it disturbs ourselves and then disturb others. And through that, we become more unhappy, more miserable. Or, out of attachment to the attachments can come, from the selfish attitude, and which come from self-grasping, ignorance, And so again, it's due to that too. So because of that, that is why all sentient beings suffer. The reason sentient beings suffer, even though they want happiness, but instead of having a happiness, they suffer so much, it's because of their own selfish attitude and because of their own ignorance. So when we truly understand that, when we truly understand why sentient beings are really suffering, then we'll try to help them to overcome the main cause of their suffering instead of trying to help them on superficial level. That is what we do at the moment. At the moment, we are trying to help ourselves and others, but the way we try to help ourselves and others is very much on surface or very on superficial level. Because we don't really understand the true cause of happiness and true cause of the suffering. Because we still believe the symptom the symptom of the suffering to become as a cause of suffering, instead of really understanding the main cause of the suffering, you know. So that is sometimes what we do, you know. Instead of trying to help someone to overcome ourselves or others, to overcome the egoistic mind, we actually encourage them to have more egoistic mind through our behavior, through our actions, you know. We inflame their ego, you know. And instead of helping them to reduce this attachment, we make them to be more attached, increase their attachments. Interesting, isn't it? We want to help, but the way we help is actually increase their attachments sometimes. We are able to help on very, you know, on very surface, very superficial level, you know. Maybe we might be able to help them make temporarily happy, but in long term, make them more attached, more obsessive, making them wanting more and more what they want, you know. So in a way, we kind of encourage them to have more stronger attachment, more attachments. And same thing, you know, when, for example, when let's say there's a conflict, you know, between someone you like, family, friends, with your enemy, or just with someone. And again, because we want to support and help out of attachment, out of our own egoistic mind, because we want to help them, then we say, oh, that person was very bad. The way he or she did to what he or she did was very bad. You have a right to be angry. You should be angry. And I'm totally with you. And in that way, what we encourage them to be more upset, more angry. Do you get it? Temporarily, they feel you are supporting them. They feel they have support. They feel kind of happy that someone is supporting them, helping them. They are on their side. But in long term, what you are doing is encouraging and flaming their more anger, you know. And again, because we don't really truly understand the main cause of their problem, their pain, their suffering is not just the external factors, you know, those conditions, but it's mainly their own delusions, their own delusion, their own egoistic mind, their own selfish attitude, their own self-grasping ignorance. If we truly understand, then we will put more effort to helping them to reduce that and not kind of increase them, you know. And that is why, you know, sometimes they say, you know, the best teachers are the ones who really point your faults. You know, pointing your weakness, your problems, your faults. But it's hard. If someone does that, we will not be able to take it. You know, it's hard, you know. it's hard to be bluntly honest. Nobody want to hear that. So, so for the teacher to be able to do, also the student need to be, have the student also need to, ripen to be able to accept and take that. They should have the courage to be able to take that, Otherwise, when the students are unable to take it, then it doesn't work that way. But normally that is how, it really is. And I think, it is easy for us, it's easy to take us when we are discussing in general like this, For example, of course, we are going through all the teachings and then saying, if I'm having any problem in conflict with someone at the moment, it's because of my own delusions. It's easy for us to accept that. But if someone comes and say you directly, personally, directly, you are having this conflict because of your own delusion, because of your, we take it very, very personal, and you say, you are blaming me for these situations, and you are taking the side of others, You are saying it's not his problem. You are saying it's my problems. You are blaming me, we can't take it, That's just show, how strong our egoistic mind is, how we have not understood on deeper level of all these teachings, how we have not understood on this more profound and deeper level. If someone have understood those teachings on more deeper and profound level, when someone say, do you know that why you are experiencing suffering? Do you know that why you are going to have this conflict? Because of your own delusion? They was, yes, correct. Thank you for pointing me that. Thank you very much for pointing me that. So gracious, so thankful. I was not aware and you pointed it now. And now I can walk with myself, with my mind. That is how you feel. But when we don't have that feeling, when someone said that, then we get very upset. You don't support me. You are not supporting me. You are being mean, unkind. You are blaming me. You are taking the side of others. All this arises, because our understanding is still, not deep enough, not profound enough. So, and the next one, not finding happiness, they suffer. So, out of attachments, we try to find, out of ignorance, egoistic mind, and through that attachment arise, out of attachments, then we want to find cause of happiness and the happiness to those whom we're attached to, whether it's friends, families, our pets, whatever. And when we are unable to do that, then we suffer. When we are unable to do that, we suffer. Because we feel like we fail. We feel like we are inadequate. We feel like we are inadequate, I'm useless. I'm unable to help even this one or that one. I'm unable to bring happiness to him or her, this or that. We feel like we are inadequate. We feel like we are hopeless. We feel like we are, not good enough. And then, feeling of, low self-esteem. And through that, then, we suffer. We suffer. But if it is not coming from the egoistic mind, ignorance, or selfish attitude and attachment, if sense of concern for someone come from true loving kindness, compassion, through true loving kindness, compassion, we have true sense of concern. And through that sense of concern, we want to help them. We want to bring them happiness, cause of happiness. And we try, and even we are not successful, you will not suffer. Will not suffer. You will not feel you are so inadequate or such a self-hatred, or feel you are so bad and incapable and suffer that way. Definitely, you will still feel, pain of the sufferings of others. You can still have concern, but you will not suffer the way we suffer at the moment. But when that sense of wanting to help, wanting to bring happiness, cause of happiness to others, out of attachment, out of selfish attitude or egoistic mind, then when we are unable to do that, we suffer. Then we really suffer. So I think there is a difference, okay? Whether it is coming from true love, compassion, Bodhisattva mind, or whether it is coming from our egoistic mind, attachments, and all of that. Depending on that, then there is different result. When it comes from two different states of mind, and even though we are trying to do the same, it is coming from different state of mind, and we are trying to bring happiness to others, and we are trying to create cause and condition for happiness for others. And when we are unable to do, whether it leads to suffering of yourself or not, that it depends on what state of mind that it comes. And so here, as it says, we suffer. They suffer. Any sentient being suffer very much when they are unable to do that because of their, egoistic mind. It hurts the egoistic mind because our egoistic mind feel I should be able to solve the other's problems. And when you feel you are unable to do that, it hurts your ego mind. And your ego mind suffer and you suffer. Do you get it? How it affects? We suffer not because we try and we are unable to help, but because your egoistic mind feel I should be able to help, and now I'm unable to help. That is when your egoistic mind feel inadequate, and it hurts. If you don't have egoistic mind, you want to help, you try to help, and if you help, great. Even if you cannot help, you try, and that is it. It's all with a good intention, motivation. You try to help. And that is what you do. And if by trying your best to help with a good intention, motivation, if you are able to help, that is wonderful. If you are unable to help, then you think, well, I did all I can, and maybe there is no karma. Maybe there is no, that is not the right time. Not all the conditions are there. Maybe due to lack of whatever that is, but you wouldn't feel such a bad about yourself and suffer such way. But when it's coming from egoistic mind, then it really hurts your mind, you know. So that is where really we suffer, you know. And in order to find it, they exert themselves. So, you know, in order to find the happiness for ourselves and others out of attachment, egoistic mind, you know, we try to find the happiness and the cause of happiness, what we believe the happiness and the cause of happiness. And in order to do that, then we put so much effort, we go through so much hardship, you know. We go through so much hardship. If we could go that much hardship to practice the Dharma, if we could go through that much of a hardship in order to reduce our delusion, probably we will have make a much huge progress, you know. If we really think every day, you know, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, all our life, all the hardship we go through, for what? Why we are going through all this hardship? All this hardship that we have gone through, we continue to go through every day, physically, emotionally, mentally, you know. Because even when we are not physically in hardship, mentally, emotionally, we are always thinking about that, worrying about that, thinking about that. So we are constantly in that, going through that, all of that, you know, in order to, you know, in order to acquire, you know, wealth, fame, reputations, in order to acquire more friends, people who like us, all of that, isn't it, is either to acquire more wealth. Sometimes if not wealth, it's about fame, reputations. Sometimes it's not about fame, reputation, or even wealth. Sometimes it's about acquiring friends, people who like us. We want to impress others so that everyone like us. So in process of that, all of that, why? Because we're attached to all of them. You know, we're attached to all of them because we believe all of this will bring us happiness. If we have more wealth, it will bring us happiness. If we have more fame, reputation, we will have more happiness. If we have more friends who like us, we will have more happiness. On the basis of that kind of belief, those will bring happiness, that will make us more happy. The more we have all of that, the more happy we will be. On the basis of that, then our life is kind of become slave in order to accumulate all of this. We become kind of whole our life running after that, you know. And all this hardship that we go through is in order to acquire all of that. With the belief that they will bring happiness and being attached to those happiness. And that kind of attachments, because we are attached to the happiness so much, and we believe those will bring happiness. And so therefore, why we are so obsessed and willing to go through all this hardship in order to acquire all of that. And that kind of attachment, craving, desire arises from the ignorance, you know. And that ignorance arises due to lack of understanding the emptiness. You know? So due to not understanding emptiness, that is why the delusion arises. Through delusion, then how we suffer. Okay, so we'll have a short break here. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? If you have any question, please. And then here, you know, the next two line from that same verse, 155. So again, due to that selfish attitude or egoistic mind and the ignorance, and out of that, then many delusions arises, you know, and because of that, then they argue with others, you know. Then we started to argue with others on the basis of many things, you know. We argue on everything, in everything, you know. We argue about religions, we argue about politics, we argue about, you know, almost everything. Also in the home, we argue. At the job place, workplace, we argue. And outside of that, we argue. And we have conflict and argue. And again, why? Because of, you know, different, due to different delusional minds, and especially due to our egoistic mind and the ignorance. So then we argue with others, you know, cuts, stab one others and others, you know. And so sometimes in the worst, some of the worst case, you see that, you know, you often hear news, people cutting, stabbing each others, shooting each others. And then if you think of bigger country going to the war with each others, all of them, where does that come from? From all of that, and through all of that, so much suffering. It is not win for anyone, it's a suffering for everyone. And again, it is because of the ignorance, that fundamental ignorance, and this, you know, egoistic mind, you know, and with many wrong deeds, you know, and so many others, you know, we lie to each others, you know, we sentient beings lie to each other. We try to, you know, exploit, take advantage of those who are more weaker, more vulnerable ones, you know, take advantage of those, you know, out of jealousy, invest, those who are more powerful, more better than us, out of jealousy and envy, then we talk bad about them. We you know, we criticize them. We talk bad about them. You know, and so all of that, you know, so And those which we feel inferior, then we look down upon them, we treat them badly, not equal, treat them as they are less, and all of that. So we create in such so many, harmful deeds or actions. And they live and they live in a state of great hardship, and then, we live in order to fulfill all of that, basically because of attachment and anger. So out of attachment, for some, we try to protect all the time. We try to protect them from all the sufferings. We try to give them all the happiness out of attachment. And those whom we have conflict, we dislike, with whom the enemy, then we always try to, overcome them, trying to directly, indirectly, trying to destroy them, directly, indirectly, wishing them pain, suffering, wishing them unsuccessful, wishing them misfortune, and then not only wishing, then sometimes we take action to bring misfortunes, pain, suffering, bringing them down, those which we feel enemy, to whom we conflict. So directly, indirectly, we do that. And with such actions, all the time, then we live in a state of great hardship, physical hardship, emotional, mental hardship, constantly, either trying to carry the job of attachment or carry the job of anger, all the time. The anger, attachment is the boss. And they say, you have to carry the job, and then we carry the job of that anger and attachment all the time, either one of them. So, and the anger and attachment put us in the work all the time. They don't give us any break, They don't give us any break. With a normal job, we have break, we have weekend. But with this delusion, such as attachment, anger, they never give us break. They never give us a weekend. They don't give us even off for a few hours. They constantly make us follow, and carry on their agenda. Carry on their agenda. Carry on their their visions, what they want to do, and that is what and through that, we all sentient beings suffer so much. So when we understand that, when we apply to ourselves that understanding, then it helps us to develop sense of, renunciations. When we truly understand on deeper level of that, then it helps us to have a pure and true renunciation, not being attached to being attached to the samsara or any of the samsaric experiences. And it allows us to develop a strong aspiration for the liberations, strong aspirations, wanting to free ourselves from all these delusions, because you understand how how horrible, how painful, how hardship it is to be under the control of the delusions. It's like that you have been in prison and you have been tortured endlessly without any kind of, without any kind of break. So you always wish to get out of that prison, that state. Same way we feel that way, even though not on physical level, but emotional level. It is like that. We had been kind of constantly tortured by all these delusions without any break. So then you feel like, I need to free myself out of these delusions. I need to get out from those delusions, from the control of those delusions. That is what renunciation is about. That is what, when we talk about renunciation, that is what, when we have the strong wish for liberation. So when you apply that to yourself, then you started to feel that the wish or the inspiration for liberation, the renunciation. And when you apply to others, then you feel compassion for others. Because you see all other sentient beings are also just like ourselves, being tortured by those delusions all the time. Regardless of whatever their external situation is, whether they are healthy or unhealthy, whether they have wealth or not wealth, whether they have many friends or less friends, whether they are very famous or not famous, whether they look attractive or not attractive, regardless all these external things, inside, they all, just like ourselves, are being tortured by those afflictive emotions, those delusionals. So therefore, they all are suffering, just like ourselves. They all are prisoners of their own delusions. And being a prisoner of their own delusions, they are constantly tortured by those delusions without any break. So when you feel that, then you can't stop but to feel compassion for them. At the moment, we are unable to feel that, so therefore we don't feel compassion for them. Because you don't see their pain, their suffering. Because you don't feel their pain and suffering, because you don't understand how being tortured by those delusions. And when you become a prisoner of that delusion, that itself is suffering. And so, so that is how we sentient beings, ourselves and all other sentient beings, how we suffer so much due to the delusions, and those delusions arises due to the ignorance and the selfish attitude, and that arises because of due to not realizing the emptiness. And so then, next 156, even though they repeatedly come so to happy existence, so and experience much pleasure there. For example, ourselves, we are born now in a happy existence. That means high rebirth, such as human beings, So we have, at the moment, we have this, we have been born in the high rebirth, such as human realms, and in that human realm, then we experience at least certain level of samsaric pleasure and happiness, compared to many others, some other beings, we have much more happiness, even though it's samsaric happiness, but still we have more happiness than many other realms of beings. we have less pain and suffering than others, So relatively, we are in good state than many other beings, especially in relation to the three lower beings. Okay, and so we are in much more better state, even though still we have suffering, but still relatively we are much more better conditions and state, So when we have that good conditions and better conditions in good state, we have to utilize it and not waste it, because we might not get same good condition again and again easily. It's like you get one opportunity, which you might not get again, that opportunity. If you lose that opportunity, then you might never get that opportunity, or it will be very hard to get that opportunity. So when you have opportunity, you have to make best of it. And I think it's same in even in our worldly life. People are they do get opportunity. They might not get so many opportunities, but time to time they get some opportunity. And people who are able to utilize that opportunity, hold that, they become successful, in different fields of area. But then some people, they get opportunity, but they're unable to kind of utilize it, and then they are left behind, So it is all about, when you get the opportunity, utilizing it, make most of it. And same thing here, we have this incredible good fortune and conditions to practice the Dharma, and to practice the Dharma, and to reduce and to overcome all this defilement, all these delusions, which are the very root of all the sufferings and pain. And if we let go of this opportunity, we might not get that opportunity again in the future. And it will be very, even we do get it, it's very difficult. So that is where, upon dying, they fall for a long time into the unbearable suffering of lower realms. So when we have this opportunity, if we don't utilize it to practice the Dharma, to transform our mind and our physical and verbal behavior, if we don't try to, overcome those unhealthy, harmful, unwholesome actions, and if we don't try to engage into more healthy, wholesome, beneficial actions, such as 10 virtuous actions, and if we don't try to, apply the Dharma by reducing those delusions, then you lose this great opportunity to free ourselves from the samsara. We have the opportunity at this point, all the right conditions, conducive conditions, opportunity. If we really take advantage of it, make most of it, we can overcome the delusions and completely free ourselves from the samsara and from the bondage of the karma and the delusions. But if we don't utilize it, instead of engage in our spiritual path, instead of trying to reduce those negative or emotions or delusion or defilement, instead of trying to act more virtuous, instead of that, we would use this life to create more non-virtuous actions, to increase more of those delusions. Instead of reducing them, if we use this life to have more attachment, more jealousy, more anger, more ignorance, more arrogant, and so forth. If we use this to increase all of them instead of trying to reduce them, and out of those delusions, we act in non-virtuous way, then, most likely, next time we will have in a, unfortunate lower realms. And if we are born in such unfortunate lower realms, not only the suffering is more intense and long, but also the opportunity to practice the Dharma become very limited, very difficult. Some others, we can't see it, so we can't but even with one of the other living beings, which is explained as one of the lower realms, is animal realm, for example. That one we can see, lower realm, the animal realm we can see. And if we see it, the animal realms, the animals, the opportunity to practice the Dharma, how much limited there is. If you, apart from whatever they have learned from past, for them to learn to be more compassionate, for them to learn to reduce the anger, the attachment, the jealousy, the pride, how can you teach them and how they learn? How can they apply that in terms of reflecting, contemplating, meditating? It seems very difficult. Even though even though some of the animals are very, very bright, very, very clever, intelligent, even though they have some of them have great intelligence. But when it comes to practice the Dharma, in terms of the way to the method, through meditation practice to reduce those delusions, to increase loving kindness, compassion, Bodhisattva mind, the aspiration to achieve fully enlightenment, it seems almost difficult, almost impossible, And even some of the dogs, very, very intelligent dogs, you can teach them so many things and they can learn so many tricks and they understand many things. But if you teach them how to meditate on impermanence, emptiness, loving kindness, compassion, I doubt whether they can learn to do that or whether they can be able to do that, So that just shows how difficult it is. Once you are born as an animal, how difficult it is to practice the Dharma to get to free from the delusions, In terms of creating negative karma, is naturally they create just like ourselves, because of past imprint. Creating negative karma seems to be so easy. Creating virtues seems very difficult. For example, we can see, even though those animals, they have anger just like ourselves, they fight, You can see they have attachments, You can see they have jealousy, Whether it's a dog, whether it's a cat, you can see, they want attention. When you try to pat or when you try to give attention to the other one get jealous. So you can see with that they have jealousy, they can get angry, they can get attachment, and then ignorance. So all the delusions, you can see that arises, and out of those delusions, acting and responding. But it is very difficult for them to learn how to not to be attached, how not to be jealousy, how not to be, ignorance, by applying certain meditation technique. So at the moment, we do have that capacity to do if we put effort, and if we have the desire, the inspiration to do it is not, we can understand, we can learn those techniques, and we can meditation, and we can do it, and we can really reduce it and overcome it. And so therefore, it is, so therefore you lose incredible great opportunity if we don't utilize for that. And then without practicing that, we die. Then, it's such a great loss for oneself and for others. Sometimes we might feel it's great loss for you, but maybe not loss but it is a great loss for you and others. Because if I become enlightened, or if I'm able to free myself from the suffering and samsara, I'm able to help much more. So therefore, all other people also lose this opportunity from help that I could provide them. They are unable to provide, they are unable to receive that help in terms of helping them to overcome their own, their delusions, Because I myself is under the delusion, so I can't help them with my own direct experience, how to overcome that delusions. But if I have overcome the delusion through my own practice and with experience, then I can help them and lead them how to do that with my direct experience. So therefore, not only I'm able to release from the samsara and the suffering and the delusion, but also I will be able to help so many others because of that. And so then, not being able to do that, you lose yourself, and also others also will lose the great opportunity also to be help to others, and others to receive such a help and benefit. And so then, within the conditioned existence, so that is samsara here, conditioned existence means our existence is conditioned by the karma and the delusions. That is why it's conditioned existence, or samsara. So samsara is a Sanskrit word, but in English, sometimes they translate cyclic existence. Here they translate conditions existence, And cyclic existence means, like it is kind of like the wheel, when you have wheel, it is endlessly cycling, by the wind or by water or whatever, continuously. So that means those being in samsara, from among the 6 realms of the samsara, they continue to take rebirth endlessly in that, due to the delusions and karma. So cyclic existence beings. And so that is a conditioned existence here, is conditioned by the delusions and the karma. So within the conditioned existence, the charms of suffering are many, So I don't think we need to explain so much of that. There's so much suffering. And our being, human beings, is supposed to be one of the realms where there's less suffering compared to some others realms. So, but even within this, if we look, whether it's a human realm, whether it's animal realms, there's so much suffering. There's so much suffering. So much suffering. And many of the suffering that we are not even aware of, many of the suffering we are not even aware of. Sometimes we feel a little bit overwhelmed by seeing the suffering of others or your own suffering, isn't it? We become overwhelmed by that because the suffering is so much. There is so much suffering, some cases, because there's so much suffering and some people cannot handle it well, overwhelmed by the sufferings of their suffering, of suffering that they see in the world. They are so overwhelmed by that, they become so depressed, And then in some cases, in worst cases, people even take their life because they feel so overwhelmed, so depressed. And why? Why they end up that? Because they feel so much suffering, pain. And those are pain and suffering that we see externally. We can't see their internal suffering and pain. Imagine, like when I see you, all of you seems okay, fine, okay? And when you see me, I'm okay and fine. But I don't see you, what is going in your mind, emotionally. What are the struggles in your mind? Different struggles in your mind, being overwhelmed by the suffering that you see in the world at the moment. Maybe some of you might be struggling that. Some of you might be struggling with a lot of fear, worry, anxiety, with this, uncertainties. And in these difficult times, some of us might be suffering, again, because of the whole, because of the sickness, the pandemic, because of these uncertainties with the job, the economics, as well as the political situations. So with all of that, so much people a lot of people are suffering more emotionally, mentally than physically, So there's so much suffering. There's so much suffering. So in this world, in samsaric world, there is no lack of suffering. There's too much suffering. Too much suffering. So that is why champs of suffering are many. And the liberating comprehension of ultimate is absence, But realization of ultimate truth or emptiness, we lack that. We don't have that. And due to that, that is why, because we don't have the wisdom that realize the ultimate truth or emptiness, therefore we have the ignorance. Because of the ignorance, then there is all this delusion arising. And because of all this delusion, then we experience so much suffering on emotional, mental level. And then due to those delusions, then we engage into, unwholesome actions. Because of that, such unwholesome actions, then we hurt and harm others and oneself. And through that, then we create negative karma. through that karma, then we experience again more suffering and pain in the future, endlessly. And that due to not realizing the emptiness. Because not realizing the emptiness, therefore we are unable to overcome the ignorance. Therefore there is ignorance. And because there is ignorance, therefore from that ignorance, other delusions such as attachment, anger arises. Through that, then we experience suffering and create negative karma and experience more suffering. So then that is. Furthermore, apprehension, true existence, understanding of emptiness mutually contradict each others. So of course, that is how the wisdom realizing emptiness can overcome the ignorance, because the ignorance mistakenly apprehend the object or phenomena to be truly existent, whereas the wisdom that realizes emptiness correctly apprehend all phenomena to be non-truly existence. And so this mind that grasps truly existent and the mind that comprehend non-truly existent, they contradict each others. And since they contradict each others, when you develop and increase through meditation, that wisdom, as it becomes more stronger and stronger with the practice and meditation, then the ignorance becomes less and less. It becomes weaker and weaker and becomes less and less, and eventually overcome totally, And so therefore that is how we can overcome. Yet if well in the condition existing, I do not realize this ultimate truth, And still, even though that's the case, if we can only have the wisdom that realizes the emptiness, correctly realize the emptiness, we could overcome all the sufferings. But in this samsara, at the moment, we have not been able to realize that emptiness, the ultimate truth. And because of that, that's why we're suffering. That's why sentient beings are suffering, Also, therefore, we should put all the effort to study, learn, and once we have understood, then trying to keep practice through reflection, contemplation, meditation, and trying to develop that wisdom that could act as a direct antidote towards all the delusion, by acting as a direct antidote to the very root of all delusion, the fundamental ignorance. And through that, then that is how we can free ourselves permanently from all the suffering and all the delusions. And so, again, so here it is kind of with many different reasoning and logics and argument and analysis, Shantideva trying to explain how important it is to have that wisdom that realizes emptiness. Without the wisdom that realizes emptiness or ultimate truth, we can only overcome suffering and problem only temporarily. We cannot overcome all these sufferings, problem permanently. Without that wisdom, we will be only, no matter how much we try to solve the problem, we are only trying to solve the problem only on surface level, only on superficial level. We are not trying to solve the problem from the very root level, It's like just treating the symptom and not the disease itself, At the moment, a lot of things that what we do to solve the problems and the suffering and the pain of ourselves and others is that we are just trying to treat only the symptoms. And then we think we have solved the problem, again it comes again, same or similar. And because we haven't dealt with the very root of it, the very root of that, the disease itself. And so that is the dealing with the delusion, and especially the fundamental ignorance. And to deal with that, we need that wisdom. Without that wisdom, realizing the emptiness, we cannot overcome the delusions. The fundamental ignorance. Without overcoming the fundamental ignorance, then we cannot overcome the delusion permanently. We can stop them from manifesting, but we cannot really totally go without that wisdom. So that is the key. Okay, so I think with that, we will kind of conclude here today.